Hello, everybody. We are again conducting another mobility panel in this stand that is from the Shared Cities Alliance and wants to see how the new mobilities, how micromobility, how shared mobility can be also a solution to offer to our citizens in terms of last mile solution. I would like to welcome the people in this panel. First is Haya, she came, Haya Dowdry, that she came from Birth, that is an e-scooter company. Is also Eddie Roca, that is from Sommobilitat, that is an e-car sharing company. Cooperative, sorry. And also Ignasi Gomez Belinchon, that is from Rail Group, that is an association of rails, of all the kind of operations about rail. I would like to start this panel explaining or remembering what it means, this Smart City Congress. At the end, we want to share, we want to find solutions from cities. And the leitmotif of this year is cities made of dreams. And yesterday, if you saw Ada Colau explaining which are their dreams, she could say that she wants cities that can be green, safety, and human. So if we want this kind of projects for our cities, we need to grow with them in this direction. This was said in the moment when they launched the new European project, the new Institute of European Mobility. And in this moment, we also say that there is not only about cities, it's also we have to understand cities as a big territory that includes also all the metropolitan areas, all the cities, all what connects cities with other cities. This is why the commuting thing, the commuting aspect of the mobility is also important. For that, I would like to start with Eddie, because they have created 2 years ago a nice project focus on mobility, focus on sustainable mobility, and it is built. He has born in Mataró, this project, so please, if you want to explain how this project built in Mataró can be also a sustainable project.
Hello everyone, I'm Eddie Roca. I work at Sommobilitat. Thanks Judith and the organization for inviting us. It's such an honor being here. And well, talking about dreams, Sommobilitat had a big dream that was like having greener cities, more silent cities, and with less cars. So we want the public space to be used by civil society, right? And well, we had this big dream, but we are making it possible, like every day. So our leitmotif, our mission is, we are a consumers, non-profit consumers cooperative. So what we want is, we want to empower the users. We want to empower the consumers to go to a more sustainable mobility. And how can we make that possible? Stop using or selling your private car. To me, there are like two revolutionary actions in life. One is stop eating meat, and the second is stop like selling your private car. Because when you sell your car, it leads to a number of changes that they have a tremendous impact on sustainability, on economy. And when you have no car, you start buying local. You don't take your car and you don't go to the mall to make like the big grocery shopping, but instead you walk. You take your bike, you go to make like, to buy in the neighborhood, and this leads to many changes. So yeah, we believed that walking instead of taking the car leads to tremendous changes, and that's what we are doing so far.
And what about when we are talking about the big cities and these metropolitan areas, at the end, you also can be a way to join this big transport, public transport that arrives to the big city. So how do you imagine that you can offer also solution from the neighborhoods, from where the people live, to the big hubs and go to the city?
Yeah. Well, we are financing electric cars because we're sharing electric cars, and in Barcelona, most of the cars that we have, they are right next to the train stations or metro stations or bus stops. But if they are there, it's because consumers and users decided that they had to be there because it has a lot of sense. I mean, it makes no sense having a car without public transportation next to it, right? So in Barcelona, it's easier to talk about car sharing because people are already used to use public transportation, to use their bikes. And well, so in cities, we believe that we need to walk and only rent the cars when you want to exit the city or when you want to go to the mountain, or when you have no alternative to take the public transport. So this is the way that we see our car sharing in cities. In urban areas, in countryside, it's completely different, right? Because people need more and more electric cars since they have no public transport. But in cities, is easier, yeah.
So what about you, Ignacy? Do you think it's only to go out of the city that we have to use this kind of alternatives, or there is also other ways that can be used also in the cities?
Yeah, thanks again to you for getting me to this opportunity to talk about that and put my thoughts over. I think it's not a matter of mobility at all. I think it's a matter of liveability. Of course, we need to have dreams, but these dreams are related to our lives. So we need to be able to do our lives irrespectively of the cities or the need of movement, right? And then put the mobility behind that. And this
you have to, it's not enough.
All right. Okay, thank you. All right, so my point is that we need to shift from mobility to liveability, because it's something that is related to our algorithm of life. We need education, we need leisure, we need laws, we need hospital, health, and many more. And mobility is something that needs to help us to do our lives. And this is a complete shift and a dream specifically for Europe, because we are related to, let's say, old and classical and quite performant infrastructures, but this is difficult to shift from that to a liveability policy. But we think this is the solution, from mobility to liveability of cities.
Okay, so in fact he was saying also a little bit that because he said, well, when I am inside the city, I only need to do things around me, so I have to walk, and when I have to go out, I will use that. So for you, it could be also a solution to use car sharing at the same time as you are using public transport, or you have only to promote public transport and not other modes.
It's impossible. We need to think in a multimodal way. Of course, let us say it at the reversal. It is impossible to be sustainable without the using of public transport. Let's have some data. In a recent report from the UITP, it was 2017 year. It was after an analysis of 178 cities. By means of public transport, 133 million of cars were avoided. You can imagine the tons of CO2 and NIOx, etc. That is, so without public transport is impossible, but not just with public transport. We need to combine in terms of the final client, not the user, the final client. And this is very important. So multimodal and liveability, for me, is solutions.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to also to tackle another thing that happened yesterday, and it was probably most of you have seen the CEO of SEAT launching this new big project about micromobility, because they say that they have to shift and find other solutions in terms of mobility, because automotive sector is changing too. The way people is living is changing too, so they are focused in this moment to micromobility. And they have been working a lot to launch this new business model, unit. And I want to introduce Haya because, in fact, Bird has been a successful company. They have been launching 2 years ago this project, and now is in more of 100 cities. So maybe you can tell us why do you think that micromobility is something that so easy was taken with citizens, and what you are solving in cities?
Yeah. So first, thank you, Judith, for welcoming us here today. So Bird was actually the first company to bring shared e-scooters to this world. So if you hate scooters, you could blame us. Basically, we started 2 years ago with the idea that every city around the world is suffering from two problems, among others, but the two most pressing problems are congestion and environmental issues because of CO2 emissions. In fact, a lot of the European cities are actually finding it quite difficult to meet their emission targets. A lot of that is because of the car that we are, and especially the private cars that are being used in cities. And if you think about it, actually cars are being used by on average 1 hour per day, so that's 1 out of 24, and by one person instead of 4. So this is less than 1%. So you have a vehicle in the street, hundreds of thousands of them, that have a usage of less than 1%, which actually is quite crazy. And so this is where Bird came into play, to say actually maybe there are other ways to move around that are for short distance, because also around more than 50% of car trips are less than 3 miles. So maybe it makes sense for those normal in-city trips if you don't want to use a car, or if you actually would stop having a car because you have other ways to go around, what would happen? And so that was more of an open question, an idea that we had 2 years ago. And the answer was like, yeah, people love it. It's great. So the reason why today we are in more than 100 cities is because it actually works. And what we have seen is that people are using Bird instead of using their own private car. At least a big percentage of our users are actually leaving their cars behind or not taking an Uber, because Bird is faster, is better, is more sustainable, is more affordable. Just to give you an idea today, to come from my Airbnb to here, I looked on the maps and it told me it would take you 8 minutes with a Bird or with a bicycle and 25 minutes with a car. And I was wondering, how is that? And then I was actually stuck in traffic for 25 minutes because I had to bring my suitcase, so I couldn't come on a Bird or a bicycle. But just to give you an idea, that is actually saving time. So if we talk about saving the environment, but also talking about human cities, it's actually saving time for humans to focus on other things instead of being stuck in a commute. And when I'm using my Bird or my bicycle, I'm actually enjoying the ride, instead of being stressed about arriving late because I'm stuck in traffic. And I actually, one point I want to make, I think we are at the point of no return with cars. We cannot keep putting more cars in our streets, because we're just going to be like a big parking garage that does not move, and that are just the cars there. So yeah, that's what we're doing at Bird.
Well, in fact, it's what it was Luca De Meo say yesterday too. And all the automotive sector is saying we don't have to move to this direction because we will fail. So that it's good to see that it works. But let me take one thing that you say, that it was, I was checking what was the main, the faster way to arrive to here, and which application did you use to see what it was faster, please?
Yeah, I just use Google Maps, to be honest. I use that all the time. So
Google Maps, and Google Maps is also, it's only to inform you.
Yeah, it's only to inform me, not to pay for my trip, but just to know. And yeah.
Okay. So because we have a discussion from time to time with Ignacy about that, about what we have to do to really be multimodal, what we have to do to really find ways to all the kind of services that we can offer. If we want to be multimodal, we can offer in a good way as a one-stop shop. Okay,
Yeah.
so for you, what it will be?
I mean, I think the idea as a concept is great. I think we are still far in implementation because what we say is we don't want to have 10 scooter apps or 10 bike apps on our phone, but then you would end up having 15 mass apps. So it's not as easy because it's still a commercial solution that needs to be viable. So I think we're now beginning to think about that, and it's still like really early stages, I think, in the industry because this has emerged, 1 or 2 years ago. In Europe, it's mostly 1 year old. So now we're starting to think. I think the question is not how I pay for my trip, but how do I make the decision? So I just want to use an example of Paris. We found that 40% of our users in Paris are actually ending their trip at a metro stop, which means they are using our scooters to get to public transportation, which is great, because it means that we're actually able to get people that would usually use their private cars to connect better to the public transport.
So at the end, before the companies or the operators are doing it, citizens are doing it. I think that you have another example about that, Eddie. About that disconnection between Mobilitat and also bus or metro stations, because you are putting your chargers, your parking places close to Metro 2, you told me.
Yeah, this is right. We have, nowadays, we have 34 cars all over Catalonia, and our car sharing model is parking based. So this means that you take the car in point A and you need to return it, give it back in point A. And well, most of our parkings are next to the train station. Yeah, in areas like Torelló, Vic, or Figueras, even here in Barcelona. Yeah, they are right next to it, and for us it's perfect because we are giving people reasons to quit private cars, right? Because many people might say, no, I'm not using your your car sharing service because it's far from my home or it's far from public transportation. No, it's not true anymore. So you can take the bus or the train, stop in the train station where you have the car sharing service, take the car and go to the mountain or whatever,
Okay.
right?
So that's good that, in fact, platforms are already doing that. And what about the public transport? What are doing our operators to match with that? Are they creating hubs? Or what are they doing?
Yeah, well, many things. This is a total cultural change in the sector. In the sector, citizens have just shifted towards that, but the sector need help, and we are trying to give them help on that and giving them some examples. One thing very important is to make it easy for citizens. So when we need to do something in our life, we need to do it easy. So then we focus onto our smartphones, and this is one thing that we always have with us. One or two. I have two. So then if we are, as operators, as rail, we are close to that, then we are close to you. And one of the key words is mobility as a service. Is the current motto of getting to you and helping you to do your life. So this is something that will implement new services and are related also not just to mobility, but also to the retail you are moving, because we are linked to your smartphone. So then, by analyzing this type of services, then we may offer you something that will help your life through your mobile. And also take into account that maybe the debate is not just having many applications, it's having the user of the ones. Google Maps is a platform, and then statistically is the most useful, right? So then, and another thing, we tend to rebel against the establishment. So if we are operators and we design and launch an application, and the other operator next to me is going to design another one, then we are tribal, but not so tribal. We need common platforms. So this is the thing we are doing, approaching by means of mobility as a service, and also by using this scheme to adapt private into public. That is to say, a public-private partnership governance. And this is crucial. This is crucial. We, the sector, the classical sector, tend to be public. No, we are the citizens. We are not public. We are citizens. So public-private partnerships governance is another key.
This is something I really like it yesterday also for Ada Colau that said governance in this moment it's something that we have to tackle. We have to transform the way we govern and we have to find ways to be more agile. So I think that could be another issue. It's clearly, but also it's about planning. You say it. One thing is about how we plan these hubs. That maybe you can also explain to us. How must be these hubs? Because since now we are, when we are talking about metro, we are talking about they only are sharing what it means public transport. But do you think that they are more and more including, especially here, this kind of other modes that help the citizen to use what they want anywhere?
Yeah, this is again something that we may also even touch it. It's, we call it the station 4.0. It's a digital transformation of the stations. Think about it. Rail used to be rail and city to city. Now it's door to door. The stations used to be places where we were lost, trying to look at our signal for our train. No, this is wrong. We need to be there not to break our lives. And this is a total revolution in the design of stations. We need places, to talk, places to eat, places to live, places to do things, not just to take a train. And also, we need to commute from one thing we are doing and to other, even mobility, not just mobility, right? So, of course, taking into account that the right solution for mobility is do not move. This is ideal issue. So then, as Professor Ryan Chin in MIT says, that maybe if we need to move, then we need to help to keep connected to our lives. And this is the station 4.0.
That's good. How do you feel that it could be a good solution also for you, or what will be your dream in this new station?
My dream, I mean, I'm going to talk more generically about my dream in terms of planning for a city to have scooters. My dream world would have, I would say like 3 things, and the 4th is additional. So the number one is we need to have scooters, right? Because today we don't put a limit on the number of the cars that are in the street. Whoever wants to go and buy a car can go and buy a car. But we do still in many cities have a lot of limits on the number of scooters. And when I talk to a city and I say, I would like to launch 1,000 scooters in your city, and they say, oh, 1,000, that's a lot. And if they just look at how many hundreds of thousands of cars are in the street and that every car occupies 10 scooters, so I'm talking about 100 cars actually in terms of parking space. So just to put things in perspective. So I think the first one is to let the market decide, let users decide if they want to use scooters, and let us have scooters if there's demand. And this is what I have hundreds of conversations every day with cities. I think the second one is more of like a bigger question of infrastructure. And a lot of cities tell me, well, actually wait, let us first give us, 10 years to build some infrastructure, and then you can come and launch back. But if I came to cities and I told them I have an idea of a scooter and it was just a theory, let's build some bike lanes, it would never happen. Like, I think the need needs to exist first. You have to have the users and the mass, and then you could, have more bike lanes, or I call them micromobility lanes. And so I think the infrastructure in the future in cities, in the plan, it's not going to be only cars and few bike lanes and then the pedestrians, but it needs to be pedestrians, micromobility, the slow vehicles, bikes.
The design of the cities must be changed.
Must be changed, and we need to get our public space back from cars, because they occupy more than 60% of our public space. We need to have more parks, more areas, and if we can, achieve our very ambitious objective of getting cars off the road, we could have more space for, I think, everything else. And I think the third one around planning is really important because it's a topic that is very, we hear about a lot about scooters, which is parking. Like where should they be parked? Well, they should be parked in designated areas for scooters and bikes, which nowadays like don't exist because this vehicle did not exist 2 years ago. So we really work a lot with cities to make planning around parking, either make rules of which type of sidewalk could they park. It has to be, a certain size. It can't be tiny, or help them put together parking spots. And some cities are very open and fast, like Lisbon. Over like 3 months, they put 1,200 parking spots for bicycles and scooters. And some cities are a little bit like take longer. But I think that this is something that we could work on together. And then I think comes the fourth element of how do we integrate all those mobility modes together, but without having a real, like they first need to be there before we could integrate them all together. And I think that we're still really, a long way to go before we really can say, actually, I'm going to go back. I don't have a car, but if I had a car, I'm going to sell my car because I could use my e-scooter or a bird, or I could use a shared electric car if I need to, or I could use the train or whatever it is. And there is no more need for me to have a car.
I don't have a car neither. and I would like to talk a lot with you, but I want to know the dreams of Eddie too, because I prefer that they ask you something, because I am sure there will be questions for you.
Well, the main asset of Mobilidad by far is our communities, right? We are building communities around mobility services, but this is just the end. We know that we are in a very, very early stage, and our goal is moving towards energetic communities, right? Because so far we have several parkings with only one car or 2 cars, but we believe that in a couple of years or even 3-4 years, these parkings will have to have solar panels where we can produce green energy. We will have to have batteries to store this energy, and for sure we will have electric shared cars. We will have parking areas to leave our bikes, our scooters. But yeah, we believe that where we have right now our services, we will have to go through like a holistic, energetic concept, right?
So a Tesla made by citizens.
Yeah, exactly.
Very well, very well. So I would like to open to the audience questions if you have. If not, I will for sure make some points to Haida. So some of you need to ask them something? Do you want to open? Okay, I will continue then. Because one thing for me I would like to understand well is, for example, Barcelona is limiting the number of number of scooters and bikes and motor sharing. And in fact, it's a question of space also. So at the end, it's the same dream as you, but they saw that because the space they have to limit or to have some limits on that. So if you agree on the design and the infrastructure and there is also, you have to understand too, I guess, that there is a limit.
Yes.
Or not?
Yeah, of course. But I think that the limits right now, we're talking about the extremely low limit. So I think that cities could have parking designated for scooter every 1 block. Also, without having that, there is no e-scooter, there is no bike share. Because for me to actually, like if you think about the car, why do people use their car? The answer to that question, I think, is because it's convenient. Okay. So unless I could have an e-scooter or an e-bike or whatever it is that is convenient, and Uber became popular because, I know it's not in Barcelona, but in other parts of the world, because it's convenient. I ask for an Uber, in 2 minutes, I don't even have to wait for a taxi, right? So it has to be convenient. So if I have to walk to the nearest scooter parking, which is 1 kilometer away, I probably will not. I would prefer to use my car. So if we want to have a real mobility solution, we need to put spaces. And it's not as much as it's actually every block you need to have a small place, which is if you take 1 car, you could put 10 scooters. It's really game-changing if you do that.
But yes. I will go.
In order to complement Haya's story, I think we also have to give the chance to the users to give the demand that they want. And sometimes if you don't even know that this solution exists, you cannot even think to use it. So in the case of scooters, as we are all here, I think many of us, sometimes we have to give the chance to the city councils to try to give the users kind of a perspective on a sustainable way, for sure. Like, we cannot say, okay, because we have seen it in many cities, like Paris, for example, that is now with more than 17,000 scooters around the street, and is making a chaos in the street, and they are now putting a regulation saying, okay, we're gonna restrict for like 3 players with maximum of this capacity, we're gonna evaluate it with the tender and so on. So I think there's certain ways to evaluate people and communities, but we have to give the chance for our community to explore as well.
I want to add to that. Yeah.
Because
Thanks. Yes, I do. It's complete. You are completely right. I mean, and this is a revolution because we in Rail Group as a cluster we use a three steps strategy to do so. First, information. We need to know. We need to know, and we need them to know us. Second, the mapping of the assets. We need to know the offer, whatever, scooters, trains, whatever. And third, we need to create marketplaces. Then you can do, or you can access to the marketplace in 2 ways, open or close. The closed one should be shifted towards a step before, that is, we need to know about segments. We need to know about the types of people. For instance, you talk about convenience. The answer is very different. For a family, for an executive, for a heavy user, it's different. So we need to know. And then these marketplaces should be, okay, we pre-schedule the answer, or we need, let's say, a motor of a search that will cluster you into the best solution for your need. And this is the answer This is one answer that we are promoting to the authorities of transport and the councils, and also for multimodal logistics. It's the same. Information, mapping of the assets that you have, and marketplaces. And I think this is something that is completely on the other side of the river compared to where we are now. And the problem is that we still are stuck onto the old ways of doing. For instance, in Paris, we have 20,000 scooters in the street. And now it has been forced the council to react. You cannot react. It's a fact. You need to anticipate.
Yeah, I think you make. Thank you. I think you make a really good point, because if we have not launched in Paris, I could have never sat with the mayor or whoever and have a conversation without actually seeing what demand is there. But now in Paris, they know that there is a huge demand for e-scooters. So the city is basically, because of the demand, is obliged to dedicate parking to allow scooter companies to enter, all of that. But I think in Barcelona, one of the, I would say, challenges that we have is that we don't know what is the size of the demand, what does the market want. And so it's very hard to have the conversation in theory about, yeah, this is a great solution, but we don't have data to back it up. And that's why we've been really pushing for, just having a few months of a pilot program to assess what is the potential. And just to give you an idea, in Paris, currently, I think 2% or less of rides are either bikes or e-scooters. And there was a study recently made based on the demand and the projection, and Paris expects to have more than 20% of all the rides in the city with scooters or e-bikes, which is, a conversation that then we can then have, let's have then 20% of the parking. We don't even need 20% of the parking. We need probably 2% or 3%.
And you are open another issue, another interesting thing. Please.
Hello. I live in Paris, so I totally agree with you, and I would like it to be even more than 20%. I have a question on affordability, because in Paris, most of the transport services are public public-based transport. So when I take the metro, the train, even when I take the shared bikes, any kind of transport is shared, except for VTC, and it's cheap, and it's based on a subscription. So I pay X euros a month, and then I can take it as much as I want. But Bird and e-scooter, I have to pay each time, and it's significantly more expensive than even a metro ticket if I didn't have the subscription. And the goal is to be multimodal, so it means I have to take the metro, and then I have to take a Bird, so it means I have to pay twice. And I think it becomes quite expensive, and I think what I see around me, people using Bird, people using, in general, e-scooters, it's privileged people that have the money to afford it, and it's not the same people that I see in the metro. So I think it's a question to address. I don't know what.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think there are actually two solutions to that, and this is something that we are actually working on and doing in our more mature markets, because when you first enter a market like Paris, it was extremely new. We're still very new in the market, so we don't have, we still don't know even what's the size of the demand. But there are two solutions. I think the first one you mentioned, which is subscription models, and I think that it's a trend that we would start seeing more. It's something that we in Bird are working on, because for the commuters, not for like the ad hoc base of, this one time I want to use a Bird. But if I'm using Bird twice, 3 times a day, then you need to have a subscription model that is more affordable for people. I think on affordability, we are in between, like a little bit more than public transport, but still like way cheaper than Uber or having your own private car. So we're still a little bit in between. I think the second question is more about different pricing for different groups. And this is something that we worked on a lot in the US, which is basically if you're a student or if you are someone with, who does not make enough income, we do different pricing for you. And these are projects that we have in the US, and we were testing some in Paris. And I think you'll start after the RFP, and after we know that we stay in Paris, hopefully, we will have more of that.
I want to complete your question with the model that COMPLET has, because it's really interesting how citizens have decided to have the payment model.
Yeah. Well, we started talking about dreams and about more human cities, safer cities, more human mobility. And it's funny, I use electric scooter, and I believe that there is a very bad public opinion about users of electric scooters. Every time I go around, like, cars are always yelling at me, hey, get out. Well, this is not your road, it's mine as well, and I can use it, right? But the fact that we spend so long talking about regulating scooters, which is very important. I don't dream about regulating the situation, but I dream about a more human society, a more human mobility. And I would like to remember that in Barcelona, 3,000 people die annually because of air pollution, and in Europe, 800,000 people die annually. And we don't give time to talk about this, which is super important, because it's about lives. It's not about chaos in Paris or in Barcelona. It's about lives. And I believe that we need to talk more about greener economies, human economies. And well, yeah, this is my final thinking, because I believe that it's unfair, this long debate about electric scooters, but we forget about greener and human mobility.
Okay, before finish, you didn't answer my question, but I ask you to go to him and ask him how is the pricing thing. But thank you for your dream.
I can answer you very fast. What we learn along the way is that as soon as you start paying every time you use your car, you reduce your mobility, right? Because when you buy a car, you use it without thinking about it, because since you already bought it and you already spent 20,000 euros, you say, okay, now I need to use it, right? Because I already paid. The thing is that when you quit using your car and you start paying every time you move, you reduce your mobility, because you think twice before taking the car. Will I take it today or not? Well, I'm going to go walking. And then you spend less and less and less. So at the end, mobility becomes much cheaper, right? Every time you need to pay. So this is the way we look at it. Yeah, I can give you my example. For instance, I don't have a car, and as average, I spend like 150 or 200 euros per month on the e-car sharing platform. Plus, maybe I spend on public transportation 50 or 70 euros per month. I use the electric scooter, but we need to talk about money, but also we need to talk about health, because it's much healthier to move around, walking, bike, and so on. So I think we need to make broader the analysis of the cost, because what is the cost for you, but what is the cost for the planet, what is the cost for the humanity, right? So, yeah.
But maybe because he was, and we have to, I will ask you to, because it's 4 and there will be another debate, so I give you the last word.
Oh, okay, thank
you. And then we will finish
Oui,
this
en
debate.
français, on dit il y a jamais deux sans trois.
Oui, c'est vrai.
It is something that is not just one solution. It is not just one solution. I put an example. I live in a little village, 700 people, and for a way of 300 meters, people take the car. 300 meters. And in the cities, we are taking the scooter or whatever. So it's something that is going to change in terms of culture. And also related to the point you made, payment. Payment is very important. And the way we pay. Because we tend to now pay by our smartphones. And then we are helping by means of the using of this data to new models, to new business models of return on value about the thing you do. Maybe the retail associated to your movement is of higher value than the price of your ticket. And this is going to happen.
Okay, so it's 4 o'clock. We have to give the place for another debate. Thank you so much to come and to share your point of view. I think that one thing that for me it's I keep is this way that all of you express that citizens are pushing the change, and because the citizens are pushing the change, cities move. So we hope that one day could be at the same time. And it could be easier, no? So thank you so much, and thank you all of you to come. And if you need something else, please, they will be here.